Sweet. Nailed it. Didn't have to say anything. Look at that.
Boom.
All right. So welcome, everyone. This is our teaching strategies class. I'm Sensei Johnson Kung, and this is
Sensei Chris Perry.
Awesome. Between the two of us, we have almost, I think we counted up like 35 to 38, somewhere around there, years of martial arts experience. And we've got almost 12 years of actual educator experience in the classroom between the two of us. So these are the strategies, these are the concepts that we found have made the biggest impact, not only in our classrooms at school, but also in our classes at the dojo, right? I know there's a lot of things that go into this that we're probably not going to be able to get to, but these are the core principles. These are the biggest things that we have found had a huge impact on our classes specifically.
Absolutely. And when we built this class, we built it as a 2.5-hour class. So we're going to shave down a lot of the ideas, and there's going to be whole swaths of teaching that we're not even going to talk about. So don't think we're looking comprehensive. We're just doing a deep dive on the things Sensei Johnson and I really find effective.
So as we go through, we have 4 main concepts that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about increasing engagement for your students. We're going to talk about classroom management, so those behaviors that we're trying to get in control. We're going to talk about effective communication, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to have a cohesive lesson plan put together for your classes. All right, so let's jump right into it. First up is increasing engagement. When we talk about engagement, we're talking about what does it look like for our students to be paying attention, and what happens when they're not really paying attention, what happens when they're not really listening and understanding what's going to happen, right? As we increase our engagement, students are getting more out of it. They're learning more, they're learning better, they have a deeper understanding, they're having a lot more fun, and they're much more safe when they're engaged and when they're paying attention. All right, so some things can get really crazy, right? When our kids are kind of running around, playing, or maybe even our adults, right? If our adults don't really understand what's going on, there's a lot of confusion and frustration. Sensei Chris, have you had a lot of experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I immediately know when I've lost engagement, when I have to re-explain something. If I explain something more than once, something has gone wrong. I have not kept my students engaged enough, and now I need to check and see what am I doing that's making them disengage and requiring me to explain multiple times. So let's take a second and let's think what happens in your classes when your students are not actively engaged. So if you have a pencil, a pen, if you got some Google Docs open, take a second, do some reflection and write something down. What is it that happens when your students aren't engaged?
This could be for your adult classes, your teens, your kids classes, right? We all have lived in that chaos enough. So let's take a moment and reflect on that a bit.
Now, 1 minute on the clock.
So what happens in your classes when they're not engaged, when they're not paying attention or they weren't quite listening? Looks like we got about 12 people in here with us.
Nice. Good to see
I say we could probably do like 3 breakout rooms as we move forward, right, Sensei?
Yeah, that sounds good. 3 breakout rooms. All right, that's our time. Finish up what you're writing.
Beautiful.
And a lot of these writing assignments we're not going to share out.
Yeah, we're going to move kind of quickly. We're going to make sure that as we share out things, as we talk with each other, we're going to make sure that those activities are very, very purposeful and meaningful. So keeping those concepts in mind, keeping in mind the things that you want to avoid happen, right? Lack of safety, kids running around, kids hitting each other with the foam tambos, that kind of stuff, right? Keep those in mind as we work on these engagement things, and how can these tools help you guys out when we're implementing them. Here's our tool belt for increasing engagement. There's a couple of things that really help get everyone involved and get everyone paying attention. There's volume, student ownership, scaffolding, competition, active pacing, and mindful drills. Some of these are going to sound really familiar, right? Competition in our classes works really well. Active pacing, you might have a good concept of that. Even your mindful drills, things like using your volume control, student ownership, and scaffolding, they may be a little bit more iffy on what we talk about or what we mean by that. So when we talk about volume, we're talking about changing the level of our pitch, changing the level of our voice, changing the tone of our voice to try to switch things up, to get students behaving differently based on what we're saying, right? We use our voice all the time, but sometimes we don't change it enough to keep people engaged and keep people active. So for instance, we can have a lot of different types of senseis, right? We can have a serious sensei or a silly sensei, depending on what we need our students to do. We can have a summoning sensei. We can have even a secret sensei, right? Hey, Sensei Chris, what does your summoning sensei sound like?
I always open with eyes on me, mouths closed. Every time.
That's awesome.
Clear.
So very specific, very clear about what you want. And his voice is very commanding, right? What about your silly sensei?
All right, y'all ready for this? Big hands, loud voice. I changed the way I speak. Y'all ready for this? Not a very serious thing to say, but I want them to know this is about to get silly. Everybody, take your hand, put it on your nose. A little bit of serious voice, silly action. Those are some of my favorite silly moves.
So that adds a lot of energy to your class, right? So when we look at that, when we change things up a bit, we can get our students involved in different ways based on that. Let's share out a bit. Everyone pick one of those types of senseis, or maybe you have a different type of sensei voice, right? Maybe there's a voice that you use a lot that really gets your students' attention or gets them behaving a certain way. So think about one of those, and I'll give you 30 seconds to figure out which one you would be able to demonstrate.
And we are going to call on you at random, so be ready.
Oh, very convenient, Sensei Andrew.
I said, bring it on.
Yeah.
Oh, I was betting on you, Ricky. All right, got about 5 more seconds. Master Ricky, what kind of sensei voice do you have for us today?
Which age group?
Let's do teen adult.
Teen adult. I do have a little teen adult here, my Ragnar friend. Let's see, teens and adults. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see you all today. Hands in front, eyes up to me.
Oh, that's a wonderful teacher voice. Very clear,
I like that.
Very explicit about what you want from them, and a very positive greeting.
And
Awesome.
you notice I said ladies and gentlemen. I didn't say boys and girls.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Teenagers
Intentional language.
treated as children. Teenagers want to be treated as adults. Not that they act like adults.
Exactly. Sensei Marilyn, do you have any wonderful sensei voices for us?
Would I say like Ricky, it really depends of the group. When I'm teaching little kids, it's hey girls and boys, and but it's in French. Basically, they say "Comment ça va?" and they'll just like "Ça va," and it just bring up all the energy.
I love
That's
it. I love
very
the
calm.
excitement. I love the seriousness and the silliness of it. You really gather them and pull them in based on what that age group is. That's great. All right. So we're going to move forward from here. And we're going to talk about changing up our volume. I think we're going to skip this part just based on the time level that we have. But looking at those different volumes, looking at those different pitches, what voices could you use? What voices would be very helpful for you in different situations? And when you change that up, you really start pulling people in and getting their attention. All right. Student ownership, huge one for me, is getting students involved in part of that teaching, right? Getting our green
Wait,
belts, getting our brown belts.
excuse me. Are you going to go back? Wait, hello.
Oh.
Can I say something? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You did voice engagement. Are you going to do physical engagement as to where the person stands and is in the room?
Oh, you mean
We
like
won't have time for that.
like presence, like physical presence? Yeah. So
Yeah, because,
we found a few of the ones that have a bigger impact, and we're going to select those. But like we said, there's a lot of different things that we can use that we just don't have the time to cover it. But yeah, physical presence, being next to a student that's not exactly paying attention, helps out a lot. You're absolutely right.
I mean, because too often instructors teach like they're on a dais and they never leave the dais.
Mhm.
Be walking up and down the aisles, left, right, sideways, so that the student then always has to find the instructor.
Yeah, and I think we're going to touch on that when we get to the managing behaviors part.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Master Ricky. All right, so student ownership is passing the control, right? Like Master Ricky was saying, we sometimes just sort of sit up on our throne and we dictate exactly what everyone should be doing, and we look down upon them and we judge them. But if we get the students to be involved in that teaching, if we get the students to say, hey, I'm really good at kata 1, so I can explain what kata 1 looks like and what you should be doing in each part. Let that kid do it. Let that adult do it. Because now that they're engaged, now that they're talking and teaching, man, that's powerful. Because not only are they learning from their own teaching style, they're also getting everyone to pay attention in a different direction, right? If you're listening to just one person the entire time, it gets boring. So when you start changing it up, when you start pulling other people in, it really allows them to focus on who's talking and what they should be paying attention to. As we go forward from here, we've got our activity. We're doing this one. All right. So we want to look at one of our students, right? Pick any student from any class. What are you really proud of that they can do? Or what should they be really proud of that they can do? And what could you have them explain to the other class, right? It could be anything as simple as how to throw a reverse punch. It could be something like, how do you ki? Or what is the next move of this kata? So think of one of those students that has something really special about them. Sensei Chris, what's an example from one of your students?
So I have one of the students in my little kids, 4 and 5-year-olds, who's excellent at raising their hand before asking a question. And I always make sure when they raise their hand and everyone else speaks out of turn to wait till it's quiet, call on them, and then ask, why did I call on you? And they get to say, I raised my hand. And it's an acknowledgement of how the student should act. And it gets the other students to realize, if I raise my hand, I get to engage with Sensei as well.
So we'll give about 30 more seconds. Really think about which student would you want to pull in on your next class? Which one would you want to highlight and let them explain something and be part of that teaching experience? Because it's part of the goal, right? We want to make not just great martial artists, but great leaders, great instructors, great teachers.
Absolutely. And I really encourage you to write these thoughts down. It's one thing to sit there and think them in your head, but once the next slide starts, it's going to slip away. So take the time, type it up, get your pen out, write these things down, and you can go back and revisit these ideas after the class.
5 more seconds and we're going to move on to the next part. All right, so moving forward, this is going to be our last activity for this one section before we start blazing through the rest of increasing engagement. Remember, we're sort of touching on the big ideas so that you can get a general sense of what things you can use in your dojo and your classes. Now we're talking about scaffolding. So scaffolding is how we break things down for a student, right? We can teach, let's say, close combat form right off the bat, but they don't have the skills and the prerequisite knowledge to be able to do all those techniques with any fidelity. So it's very easy to imagine a student getting frustrated because they don't know how to do a wheel kick. They not great at forward roll or front drop, but now you're telling them to start rolling around on the hardwood. So yeah, they're probably not really going to want to do that part. And if they keep getting parts that they don't want to do, they're probably not going to want to do any of it. So now we're talking about motivation, right? Motivation comes in two parts. It comes in value and it comes through expectancy. Value is, do they find this important? Do they find that it's helpful to them? Do they find that it's fun? Do they find that it's going to protect them and their loved ones? Versus expectancy. Can they actually achieve it? But there's a spectrum on that, right? You want them right in the middle where like, yeah, it's a little hard, but I want to be able to do it. We don't want to get too far to one side where they say this is impossible. And we also don't want them to go too far to the opposite side where they say this is way too easy. It's not worth my time. All right. So last part we're going to think about for our students in this section is, what was the last time you had a student just like, I give up. I don't want to do this. Or maybe they just started wandering away and playing with something else. And what was it that caused them to do that? Was it a motivation issue? Did we not make it valuable enough for them? Was it not fun enough? Was it not important enough? Did we not explain it clearly? Or was it something that they just didn't know what to do? Or maybe it was too hard or too easy? So think about those last times that I'm not really getting through to this student. What can I do to get this person more engaged? Why were they unmotivated that day? So give another 30 seconds to think about that student so that next time we interact with them, we can get them a little bit more involved.
And Sensei Johnson, you want to set up some random breakout rooms so everyone can talk about it just for a little bit, maybe a minute long?
Absolutely. So 30 seconds to think about it, and then we'll do a 1-minute breakout room. I love that. All right, 5 more seconds of think time. So when we go to these breakout rooms, share out your ideas. What student are you thinking of, right? We don't have to name names, but why was that student unmotivated? And here we go. Go ahead and join your breakout rooms, everyone. Jumped over, good, good, good. No, okay.
Would you say that's center line or body position?
Well, it's kind of a combination of both, but really, body position is close, center line, and then my center line is right in there. So I think it's All about script prep. So now she's taking a punch and working into
Breakout rooms, close all breakout rooms.
He comes in. I want you to find, if I'm out here, as soon as I realize that I'm out here, you'll see this. There's no, I don't have this mention. I'm gonna immediately. And now I have it.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. All right, looks like we have most, if not all, of the people. So we're going to start rapid firing through a couple of these because Sensei Chris has some really cool stuff he wants to talk about, and I want to make sure he has plenty of time. So we've got competition, right? We use competition all the time in martial arts, getting, all right, who can punch the fastest, who can punch the hardest, who can line up really quickly, right? And sometimes we don't even want them to compete against each other. Maybe we're having them compete against us as senseis. Maybe we have them compete against the clock, right? But that competition really drives up the stakes and gets them going forward, right? Depending on how we use that competition, we don't want to overdo it, because if everything's always a competition, now it's just the status quo. They can get bored with it. We want to make sure that we use it intelligently and use it purposefully. Different things for competition. We want to make sure that if they lose, they're not just sitting there. They've got something else that they can be doing as they go through to keep them engaged, right? A loss doesn't mean you're done. A loss means you have an opportunity to build up something better. As we go through, we have active pacing, making sure that we're controlling how fast or even how slow our students are moving. If we want a lot of energy, if we want everyone moving, then we control the huts, right? Our huts get faster. We have them do more things for each hut. I start calling my huts once every 5 seconds, right? Now I say, all right, now I need you to do the technique twice every time I hut, and I still keep it that 5 seconds. So now they're a little bit higher energy, they're racing against the clock, and they're moving forward. This works really well in transitions too, right? How many times have we sent a group off, all right, go get water and come back? And then we're waiting 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes for them to all come back. And now we start yelling, hey guys, you're taking too long. But if we set a time like, hey, you guys have 30 seconds, go grab your water bottle, grab a drink, come back. And I start counting 30, 29. Man, you should see those people run. They never move fast. And you start counting down the clock and they know exactly how long they have. It works great in my classroom. It works great in the dojo as well.
If you ever do a countdown, don't make the last 5 seconds another 30 seconds so everyone gets there on time. Because then you just lied. You said it's 30 seconds and really it was a minute. You just went 5. Hit 0, start the class. If they're late, they're late.
Yep. You gotta stick to your word every single time. Once you say something, you gotta stick to it. Even if it was a little bit of a mistake sometimes, maybe you were a little bit too harsh on that. You gotta follow through with it, because your word is law and you got to make through. Now, we can adjust after the fact, but if we say something, we got to stick to that. Using mindful drills, making sure that
No. Let me finish my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't know you had a question.
When you have a large class and you have a lot of people, what else do you use besides counting for your signals and transitions? What else do you use for signals? Signals.
We're gonna, Sensei, we're gonna get into effective communication later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you, Ricky. But yeah,
okay,
we're definitely gonna catch on that. All right. So using mindful drills, thinking about what things make a drill exciting and effective, right? Our drill should have a purpose. They should be very clear about what we're trying to get out of each drill, and they should be concise. We don't want something super long and convoluted to teach one simple thing. We want to be precise about what we're doing with those drills. Those drills should build up. They should start with a simple concept and then get more complicated as our students progress through that drill. If we do something like a flying back fist, right? We don't jump straight into that flying back fist. We start with a back fist first. What is that back fist? Okay, then we break it down. What does that footwork look like? All right, now let's start putting all of that together, right? Like I said, we're gonna go through this part and then we're going to, Sensei Chris, I think we were doing this last part too, weren't we? This
Yeah,
toolkit part?
Let's do this.
All right.
Definitely.
No, I have it marked as just moving forward. Because I
All
think
right, well,
we're
let's move
at half
forward.
an hour now. So let's jump into the next part. And Sensei Chris, I'll let you take over from here.
Okay, so let's talk behavior management. Now, let me dig in a little bit to the idea of behavior. So I have my master's in special education with a focus on working with students who have autism. And in that world, we use what's called applied behavior analysis, which comes from behaviorism. So when we say behavior, we mean pretty much anything a person can do at all. So if we're talking about behavior management, we're not just thinking, how do I get my people who misbehave to behave? We're thinking, how do I get people to behave in the way that is valuable as martial artists? How do I get them to push for that extra rep? How do I get them to come to class early so they're ready to train immediately? How do I get them to always pay attention? Behavior is everything a person can do. So we're digging into how do we tailor our students' behaviors to the things we want to help them grow. All right, let's keep moving, Sensei. Okay, so our learning goals for this section. What we're going to try to get into, one back, is we want to learn how to keep our students focused, keep them working hard, have them respect each other and follow the etiquette rules of our class, and keep our class running smoothly. This is what we want to get done with our behavior management skills. Now, I want to really briefly talk about what behaviorism is. So when we're talking behaviorism and behavior management, what we're saying is every action that a person does meets a need. If you have a student who doesn't work very hard, they're meeting a need that they have. Whether that need is, oh, my muscles hurt and I don't want to work harder, or when I'm lazy, Sensei gives me a lot of extra attention and tries to get me to work harder. So you got to figure out what are the behaviors people are doing and why are they doing them. And this is important because we have a student who's lazy to get attention from Sensei. Because every time they're lazy, you go over and you go, come on, you can do it, you can do it. Instead, focus your attention on the kids who are working hard and show them if their behavior changes and they work hard, they get the attention that they want. That way, instead of telling them what to do and reinforcing their lazy behavior, you've taught them hard work gets attention, not laziness. So that's what behaviorism is about. There's a lot of examples. This is like a 4-year degree. We're just skimming the surface, but that's what we're thinking. Let's move forwards. So get out your pen and paper, and we're going to write about what you think are the 3 most important behaviors you want in your class. Now that could be, I think students need to show up on time, always have their uniform together, and say Sensei whenever they talk to me. That could be, I need my students to always work as hard as they can and push themselves to their limits. I want them to listen as closely as they can, and I want them to focus on precision. What do you think are the 3 most valuable behaviors in your classes? I'll set our timer for 1 minute, and let's get writing. Which part, Ricky?
I think she's responding to Sensei Martha's comment, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So
Antecedent
antecedent
behavior
mean what is?
consequence.
Oh, yeah, go for it, Sensei.
Oh, yeah. So the antecedent behavior and consequence is a term used in behavioral science. We're not going to dig into it, but if you want to learn more about behaviorism, we can talk about it later.
Yeah, in essence, it means what is causing the behavior, what is the behavior that's occurring, and what should and what will happen because of that behavior. Master Ricky, you're muted right now.
So you're basically talking about stimulus, response, and response.
Yes.
Okay, got it. You guys got new terms, that's all.
Yeah, education's constantly changing, but you knew that.
Yeah, I
Always
have a
up
master's
in the
degree
air.
in that stuff before you were, well,
Before we were existing.
yeah, long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, got about 1 more minute, guys.
And Sensei Johnson, if you would go ahead and get the breakout room started. Once you
Hey,
finish,
wait.
we're gonna do,
Can we not put me in a
we're gonna do-
breakout room with my old students?
It was just
Um,
randomized, but I will do my best.
Okay,
so once we get into the breakout rooms, what we're gonna do is you're gonna share out one of the behaviors that you think is the most valuable behavior you want in your class from your students. And we'll start that in about 20 seconds. So finish up those thoughts.
we have a lot of downtime.
And take us away, Sensei Johnson.
All right, go for it.
Okay.
All right.
MJ
MJ
what?
made it. And Sensei, did you start the breakout rooms? You did. You didn't
I
assign me.
did.
That's
It
what's
didn't,
going
it
on.
didn't assign you. I'm gonna put you
That's fine,
in
that's
room
fine.
3 for. You're good. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I'm
sounds
gonna
good.
jump around for a bit then.
There should be breakout rooms that you can jump into, MJ, Mark, and Angel, or unmute and we can just chat in here.
I should clarify. This is Rosario. We have several screens set up, and I just popped
Okay.
in here to see who was in, and I see you have a breakout room thingy. I'm like, are they going to realize that there's I can turn my video on even. So I caught a little bit of that last part of the presentation, so that was good. Yeah, this is
Okay, yeah, so we're talking about what behaviors we think are most important in our class. How do you want your students to act?
Yeah. No, I like that. I like those slides and stuff. I'm gonna have to go a little bit and check on my kids that are doing the kids in Chukka because they keep going
Oh, yeah,
closer and closer, and I'm gonna have to spread them out a little bit. So, but I just wanted to see
Totally.
what's going on in here.
well, it's good to see your face.
Except I need a better camera. This I'm all blotchy, man. Dude,
You know,
Anyway.
it's still a good face, blotchy or not blotchy.
you can still see all this because I see Mark's there
Yeah.
with his beard.
It's a team beard right now. How you doing, Roseanne?
MJ.
Did you catch the part of the presentation right before this?
I'll make sure. I
There
did
you
catch it. Right. I came to teach a class and I opened it right before I left. So if I was going to ask Johnson or you to please send me a recording of it or the link to the recording if that's possible. It looked very interesting and I was very interested in the presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, we will do that.
Thank you so much. Let's see. I'll look you guys up in the black belt list and just email you and ask for that then. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm gonna
Sounds
go ahead
good.
and close the breakout room, Sensei Chris. Ready?
Yep, bring them on in.
All right.
We had a bunch of new folks just join in.
Oh,
Very
awesome.
cool. I like it. All right, and
All
I'll
right, if
share
you
my
take us to
screen
the
again.
routine slide.
Welcome back,
All right, if you take
everyone.
us
And we've got a few new people with us too. So, Sensei Chris, all yours.
All right, if you take us 2 forward to the green. So one of the easiest ways to do some behavior management to keep your students on track and focused is to have a consistent routine. Now, lucky for us, Kungnu has a built-in routine. It's our bow-in ceremony. We always start every class with the exact same routine, and that really helps people get their minds and their bodies focused on what we're doing. And we want to look at some more routines that we can weave into our class to keep that same focus going. Let's see, we only have 7 of our folks in. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
So
All right, we're all back. So like I was saying, routine is going to be our first tool for behavior management that we dig into. Now we're lucky, we have a routine pre-built. It's our bow-in ceremony. We start every class with it, we finish every class with it. We're going to look at a couple more routines that we can weave into our class to help people be focused and know what's coming next. So they're not thinking about what's next, they're thinking about the drill or activity. Sensei, you'll take us forward.
Yeah, of course.
All right. First thing, keep it simple and straightforward. If your routine has 15 steps, it's too many steps. Gotta cut it down. Your routine needs to be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and that's about it. Now, these are a couple ideas. These are not the only things you can do, and you may not like some of these ideas, so don't sweat that. One is to open with the same warm-up every class. That way people know, okay, it's on. I do this, I do this, I do this, and they get to focus on that hard work. When you're teaching, always use the same teaching cadence to teach a technique. Start short, build it up. That way everybody knows, okay, we're about to learn a combo. Sensei's gonna teach the first move. We're gonna do it 5 times. Then they're gonna teach the second move. Then we're gonna do it 5 times. That way your students are prepared for what comes next, not always wondering. Next, use the same language when you transition between activities. You can also use the same body language, the same hand motions. So if you have a really big class, you can say, I'm going to say water, and then you teach the whole class, everyone goes, water. So you're like, everybody, water. Everyone says water, and then we all know it's time to go get water. 1, that can save your voice. 2, hey, increasing engagement with your class. And 3, we all know what it means. And the next idea is finish class with the same activity each time. At Unity, we like to finish class with sparring. So everybody knows, okay, it's almost the end of class, break, get your gear on, and then we go and spar. Those routines really keep people focused and engaged in our class. Let's move on.
I've had so many times when students will start packing up and they'll start getting ready, or they'll start losing motivation because, oh man, it's almost the end of class. But if you have that same routine, class isn't over until you've hit that routine. So now they stay motivated. Now they know it's not done yet.
Yes, and definitely with the little ones, if you change the routine, there will be a rebellion.
Oh, they'll lose it.
So take a second, or take about a minute, and write down what are your opening routines and what are your transition routines? What are the routines you have, or maybe you don't have a routine right now, and take a second to create that routine. And Master Ricky mentioned in the chat, teaching little kids, 3 and 5-year-olds, routine is significantly more important. So if you're teaching little kids, routine is where it's at.
Like Sensei Chris was saying, your routine should have very specific language that you use for it. So if you tell them to go get their pads and get their sparring gear on, if you say it in a different way each time, they're going to take a little bit longer to figure out exactly what you mean. So if we use the same language every single time, they know exactly what's happening, exactly how long they have to do it, and what they should be doing.
Absolutely. All right, about 5 more seconds.
Question, Sensei?
Yes.
So the opening routine you mentioned is a bow-in.
Yes.
Is that accurate? So the ending
That-
routine, you did not refer to that as the bow out.
Yeah, I omitted that. That's my fault. But yes, we have the bow out as a closing.
So do you initiate after the bow in? Do you initiate class the same way every time with a different opening? Like if you remove bow in and bow out, do you still, like sparring you mentioned is the end, is the last thing you do at Unity? Do you also open a similar fashion, like extrapolating out from the bow in and bow out, or is it not that way.
We are going to dig into that concept later in class structure.
Gotcha.
All right, let's take it to the next slide, Sensei Johnson. Okay, let's talk about praise, corrections, and redirections. Use explicit language, and I'm not talking about dirty words. When you speak, you need to say exactly what you mean. If you're praising someone and you say, good job, you're doing great, great job, you're awesome. Okay, what am I good at? Apparently I'm good at being praised. You say, I really like that your back foot in your forward stance has the toes forward. I love how bent your front knee is. That was a really strong reaction hand. That type of praise is going to get you the most response and teach people what things you want them to do based on how you praise them. So explicit language, same for corrections, not stronger. Instead, use your hips to push from your legs to get more power in your punch. Teach with your praise, with your corrections. And same with redirections. If someone's not paying attention, hey, over here. What does that mean? Instead, I need you to stand in natural stance and keep your eyes on me and your mouth closed. That's a redirection that has a clear goal. Sensei?
Yeah, notice
And I got to
he
start
doesn't
speeding up.
say, don't do this or avoid that, right? Because there's so many other things they could be doing. He's very specific about what exactly we want to happen.
Absolutely. All right, next slide. So here are some different thoughts and ways to praise and correct. And Master Ricky mentioned in the chat, keep your praise and corrections brief. If it's 2 sentences, that's too long. If it's 1 sentence, that's probably too long. 5 words is a really, really good way to think about your praise. So we talked about being specific. Now here I've written everything is personal. This is an idea that I think is really valuable to teach your students. If you teach them, take everything a sensei says personally, what you're saying is, when a sensei says, everybody sink in your back stance, you go, that correction was just for me. When they say reaction hand, you go, that correction was for my reaction hand. When they say a little bit more power, I'm the one who doesn't have enough power. If your students are always thinking every correction is for me, they're going to be incredible. But if they think, that wasn't for me, that's for that guy over there who has the bad reaction hands, that lets them start slipping. So that's a concept I like to teach my students. Praise and correct all your students. If you just praise 1 or 2 folks, the other kids or the other adults will know. Make sure you're touching on everybody in the whole class. And like Johnson said earlier, your word is gold. You've got to stick to it. I'm sure you have all sorts of absurd high school experiences, Johnson, where you said something and then changed a little bit and the kids just went right for you.
Oh man, absolutely. Like we were wrapping up, right? And I said, okay, you guys have 30 seconds to get this turned in and then go back to your seats. So I start counting down and we're at 25 seconds and people are still turning things in. And I realized, oh man, I didn't give them enough time because they all have to turn it individually. They're all stacked up. I didn't teach them how to pass papers to each other and send one messenger. So I started counting slower and I started extending it. And now suddenly no one was rushed anymore because they knew I was giving them as much time as they wanted.
That one will get you. And also watch out. I told a kid once that if he did something, he would have to do 100 push-ups. And then he did it. He punched another kid with a shield and I had to sit with him and he had to do 100 push-ups. And I don't know who was more miserable, me or him. So it was not what you want to say. So never be like, if you do this, I'm going to send you out and you're going to run 100 laps in the snow, because either you're a liar or that kid's about to run 100 laps in the snow. Yeah. Neither of which are good.
It's not even just about that one kid, right? If the rest of the class sees that, oh, Sensei Chris isn't consistent with his threats, so maybe I'll get away with a lighter punishment even if I do it.
Absolutely. Good point. All right, let's move on. Okay, redirecting incorrect behavior. Now down here at the bottom is the most important thing. Teach a replacement behavior. If someone in your class, and now we're talking a lot about kids because kids generally need the most behavior management, but even an adult, if somebody in your class is regularly doing something that's not correct, let's say you have an adult who's coming in late regularly, or you have someone who's not bowing when they step onto the mat, you have to teach them what to do. If you just say, that's not right, don't do it like that. Make this better, but you don't tell them exactly how they can improve. They don't know what to do. They only know what not to do. So you've just eliminated an option for them, but they don't have another choice. So you've got to make sure you say to them, I want you to leave your house 15 minutes earlier so you get here on time for bowing. Instead of saying, stop being late. Because there's no constructive teaching with the sentence, stop being late. Clear consequences and a red line. You do need to let people know if the behavior continues, this is what's going to happen. If you come in late again, I'm going to have you sit on the side of class instead of participate. I really want you to be in class, but if you're not showing up, you can't be in class. Make those clear. All right, Sensei, let's keep moving. We're going to speed it up some.
Gotcha.
Got a lot to cover. Okay, tone of voice. When you talk to somebody and you praise or correct or redirect them, make it about the behavior that they're doing. Don't make it about them as a person. If I say, you have bad reaction hands, that hurts. That feels like you're attacking somebody. If instead you say, let's improve your reaction hands by focusing on a strong pull backward, it's positive. It's separate from the person. We are improving the reaction hands, not them as a human being. And you are a team against the thing that you don't want to happen. Instead of saying, you're not working hard, you're just lazy, we say, man, it's really easy to not work hard because our body doesn't want us to sweat and try hard and be in physical pain as we work out. But we can do this. I'm using we, not you, because we're a team. I'm putting the enemy as laziness, inactivity, and then I'm saying we can do this together. Make sure that we push hard. When you start to feel yourself not working, remember, you can do this, work harder. Don't make it about them being bad. Make it about how you as a team are going to improve together. Sensei Johnson, how do you like to do that with your students?
I give them very specific goals, like you were saying, right? I've got some students who are taking a very long time to get through their push-ups. They stop a lot, they sigh, and they complain. So we want to talk about that motivation. We want to get down with them. We're like, all right, let's get through these last 5 together. All right, we'll count them out. So we're changing the behavior. We're making it a team effort. And now we give them very specific goal. All right, these 5, we break it down, make it nice and small, and we give them something to focus on. Now it's no longer about their negativity about it. Now it's no longer about their inability to do it. Now we're changing things up so that their mindset is on a positive goal that allows them to succeed. And sometimes we can also change it for to give them something that prevents them from doing the negative behavior, right? If a student's wandering around smacking other people, I don't say, hey, don't touch other people, because how many kids have gone around, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, right? We tell them, hey, I need you to stand on your X. So now they stand exactly where they're supposed to, and they cannot touch other people. We give them a action or a goal that prevents them from even being able to do what they're not supposed to.
Absolutely. So let's go on to our final activity for behavior management. I want you to think about what, if any, incorrect behaviors are you struggling with in your classes, And how would you change the way you deal with them? And the reason I say how would you change it is because if you're still struggling with an incorrect behavior, your current response isn't working. So we got to change it. Anytime someone is engaging in a behavior we don't want them to, and we can't fix it, we need to change our approach, because just banging your head against the wall is not going to change it. It's just going to make you more and more frustrated. So I'm going to give us 1 minute to think about that. And then I'm going to ask 2 people to share out. And I'm going to try to find some folks who have not shared out yet. So prepare yourselves. We got our timer going. We got about 45 seconds left. What are those behaviors that you're struggling with? Okay, Senpai Jack, are there any behaviors that you've struggled with when you're assisting or teaching classes?
I was teaching or helping teach a class of young kids, about 8 to 10, and I was struggling with keeping their attention on me, or attention on the drills that I was trying to show them. And sometimes I'll lose them, and I can see them start to go back into their own worlds and sort of fidget with not doing the drills that I asked them to. And I was trying to work on that with having a more steady voice, and trying to leave no room for like questions. Explain it the best I can, and then have them do it, and try to keep it consistent.
That's a good thing to think about. And we're about to get into how to effectively communicate. So hold that in your mind. And Sensei Lucy.
I think I have I guess a similar issue with attention and trying to keep them on track. So yeah, maybe more communication.
That's a good idea. And one of the things to think about with attention is always what's pulling their attention away. Because it may be an engagement issue. It may be a communication issue. You got to think, what is the thing that's pulling their attention away? And how can I be more interesting, exciting, valuable than that thing? But awesome. Thank you all for sharing out. All right. Sensei, if you would take us to the next slide. So we just scratched the surface of this. There's so much more to talk about, but we got to move on because there's a lot of things to think about. If you have any specific questions about behavior, general or specific, email me, reach out, let's talk about it because I'd love to go over that. So let's dig into effective communication. We got a double header. I'm going to take these 2 topics and Sensei Johnson will finish. We're going to go pretty fast because we're low on time. Effective communication is how well you can convey your ideas in a simple and straightforward way. KISS is back, baby. Just go, go, go. So let's move on. All right, so we're going to learn how to use our voice and body language to teach, use our voice and body language to create energy. We're going to focus on how we choose language to model and set the tone of what we want in our classes. Intentional language choice is really valuable. And we're going to practice listening to our students too. They are half of the interaction between teacher and student, so we need to know what they're thinking and saying as well. Let's go. Consistency. We keep bringing consistency up. Don't change the way you talk about stuff. Don't change your routines. People love consistency. Explicitly stating your goals. You're like, okay, we're all gonna balance on one foot and then try to pick up marbles with our toes. Why? We're building your balance. We're strengthening your legs. Let people know what the goals of your drills are so they have something to think about and focus on as they do it. Let's keep moving. I see this conversation about homework going on. I will tell you, it is tough to get kids to do homework unless they have a great reward for it. But that's a whole nother concept. Couple more ideas for the basics. Keep your explanations concise. Sensei, why do we punch like this? Because it's more powerful and biomechanically correct. Moving on. We don't want to get into a large conversation about the bone structure in our arms and the way we drive off the ground. We want to go and get the practice in. Martial arts is physical, not just mental. Be direct. Sensei Johnson, what are some of your favorite ways to be direct when you're teaching a class?
I really like how you guys are saying keep our comments to 5 words, right? You always have these students that think, oh, watch me distract the teacher with this question. He's going to go off on this huge tangent about black holes. And I've definitely done that before, right? But it can be something as simple as, oh, that's a really great question. I'll explain it to you once we're done with this next part. So sometimes, depending on what type of question they're asking, I'll just side skirt it, right? Our focus right now is performing this technique. If they're asking something specifically about the technique, we keep the 5 words, right? Oh, hey, Sensei Johnson, why do we turn on the heel as opposed to the ball of our foot? Oh, when we're rotating on our heel, we have less moving parts, so it's more stable. Moving on.
Absolutely. And the last thing is to keep your students in mind. Know what their goals are, their limitations, what level they're working at, or if they've experienced any trauma. If we're doing a self-defense class and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to choke you, and I just grab someone, and they're dealing with some sort of trauma in their past that involved choking, I may have destroyed our relationship. I may have scared them out of the school. I have completely destroyed any ability to have communication because I didn't check first and see, is it okay if I touch you? Is it okay if I place my hands on your shoulders? You have to work with the people who are there. They are human beings with a whole life that you don't know about. So always communicate with them before you dive right into something, especially if it's something that may involve grabbing, touching, throwing, twisting, which we do a whole lot of. Let's skip this activity, Sensei. We got to get on to your class structure stuff. I know it's a good one. So another tool for communication that Sensei Johnson talked about earlier was giving your students agency in the classes. Have students give the huts, have students give other students feedback with guidance. This is really important. Say, I want 1 correction and 1 piece of praise. And then have your students practice giving explicit praise and correction. 1, they're engaged in class. 2, you're training the next generation of leaders. 3, everybody works harder for their peers. And then have drills that pull those students in. We're going to do a combination, and I'm going to have each of you give me a part of it. Sensei Roseanne, what's the stance? Senpai Jack, what's going to be our hand technique? Suddenly you're engaged with it through the communication. Let's keep going. Okay, task analysis. It's a fancy way of saying breaking something down. This is a big one. Write this down. We are probably all pretty good at it already, but we just want to be intentional and clear and explicit about it. Anything that you're teaching, you should be able to break it down into its smallest teachable components. If I want to teach a punch, I can't say, just throw your fist forward, because that comes in a million varieties. I want to be able to say, close your fist, starting at your pinky. Leave your thumb out. Now cross your thumb over your fingers. Make sure it's not poking out from your fist. So we've broken making a fist down into 2 parts, and we could go smaller if we wanted to. Now take your hand, turn it palm up, and place it on your ribs. On the side of your ribs, not the front. Again, you got to be really explicit. Now, make sure your elbow stays touching your side and start to push your hand forward. As you do this, keep your hand in the center, along your center line, down your nose and sternum, not to the side. See, we're still talking about half of a punch, and we're just slicing it into the littlest components. Now, as you get to higher ranks, you can make these much bigger. Everybody, open hand, reaction hand. Much faster because your students have experience, but you want to be able to cut it into the smallest parts. Where you're stepping, what part of the foot is stepping, the angle of the foot as it steps, how bent are the knees, is the spine vertical, is it straight but at an angle forwards? That's the kind of detail we need to get into, not because every technique needs to be taught like that, but because one student may need a full breakdown, a total task analysis of a technique.
I really like how Sensei Chris added in feedback for the students. Oh, your arm should be touching your ribs all the way through that punch. Because sometimes our students have a hard time conceptualizing, okay, what does a 30-degree angle look like for my foot? What does a punch look like when it's straight or when it's focused on my center line? Giving them things to check for and realize and feel really allows them to understand what you're saying, as opposed to telling them specific angles or details. If they can say, oh, my arm's not touching my side anymore, they know it's wrong.
Absolutely. All right, let's move forwards. Okay, intentionality. So intentionality is something I think about a lot, and I have found it to be one of the most effective tools for making my students into the type of martial artists that I want them to be. Intentionality is about thinking of all the words you're going to use and why you've chosen those words. Now, I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll dig into some of this stuff. I have some examples down here, but here's one that's just fresh in my mind. I was talking about being fast with my students, and I described it as an attribute. And then I realized that was a mistake, because an attribute is something you have. You are born with that. And I want my students to think of everything as a skill that they can build. So in the future, I made sure always to describe skill or describe speed as a skill that you can build, as opposed to something that you are simply born with. That way, all of my students understand this is something we can build up. When we're being intentional about our language, it's very subtle at times. It's not always super clear, but people will pick up on it. If you always talk about like, oh, you know, I just wish you guys would work a little bit harder. Like, you can do it. But that first statement, I wish you would work a little harder, lets everyone know you are always disappointed in them. Even if you're not, the way you phrased it makes you disappointed. So you have to make sure you never use language that enables those thoughts to exist in other people. Instead, I know you guys can work harder. That means everyone knows you believe in them so much that you're positive they can do better. That's intentional language right there. And it's how you build a culture of hard work, kindness, and friendship at your dojo. Sensei Johnson, do you use intentional language in your high school classroom as well?
Oh, 100%. Whenever students are coming in late, we don't criticize them. I don't question them. Oh, why are you late? Oh, there's no excuse for that. Oh, why are you taking so long in the bathroom? Oh, all these things that could be negative, as opposed to, hey, thanks for making it in. Let's make sure that we are starting on time together next time we come over. So we're talking about, I'm happy to see them. I want them there, and I want them there on time so that we can all start at the same place.
Awesome. I love it. You can convey so much more information with intentional language than you realize you are. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. We got an activity here. What type of culture do you want to build in your dojo or in your class? What does it look like, and how can you use language to intentionally create it? Now, culture makes up most of the components of what we do in the dojo. And we have, what does that look like? That was a great addition from Sensei Johnson, because if you just say, I want people to work hard and be kind, we need to be explicit. What does working hard look like? Are students always sweaty? Are they needing to stretch after class because their muscles are sore? Are they always focused? What do you consider hard work? And what do you consider kindness? Are they giving each other gifts all the time? Are they praising each other for their hard work? Are they just hanging out as friends? So let's take some time. We're going to do a little bit more on this one. And I really encourage you to write this one down. Don't just think about it, but put it on paper. Spend about a minute and a half writing what type of culture you want to build, or if you already have a culture, how you would adjust it, and what will that look like, and how can you use your language to create that culture in your school. Clock's running.
I think this is really cool because when I was bouncing around the different breakout rooms, I already heard a lot of these things where you wanted your students to help each other out, to encourage each other. You wanted your students to keep working on drills even when you turn your back on them. So you already have a great idea of what you find valuable in the culture of your dojo. Now we're just choosing language that helps build on that and helps promote that.
Well, I like what Master Ricky's doing. Y'all can go ahead and post those ideas in the chat too, so we can all look at them.
I love that, Master Ricky. You're being very purposeful about what you are doing and what you're saying for each individual student to make sure that they know what type of atmosphere you want, that they are accepted, and so that they can promote that with the other students as well.
We're going to have to skip the next activity, Sensei Johnson, and head right into your class structure section.
Yeah, we got about 20 minutes left, it looks like.
All right, finish up what you're writing. And before we go on, I would just like one or two folks to share out. Sensei Mark, what are you thinking in terms of intentional language and culture creation?
This is new to me, so I'm not sure exactly what we're looking for when we're thinking about culture in our school, because I've been at this one school for so long and we do things in a certain way. You know, the acceptance, what Master Ricky was talking about was saying hello to the students, but also talking about making sure that they're on time. I like the idea of not just saying you're late, you have to go to the back and work and then do a late bow in, but actually accepting them and saying, we want you to be early so that you're part of the group. I like being able to add that into what we normally say. I'm perhaps this was covered in the first part, but is this specifically about teaching kids or teaching adults or both or what?
It's for all levels.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think when we promote martial arts in our dojos, right, we don't only teach self-defense. We don't only teach fitness. We advertise it and we say, oh, come join our school. We teach your students how to be responsible. We teach your children how to be kind to each other and how to have a strong work ethic, right? Those are also part of your culture. So what do you do and what do you say in your dojo that helps build those things?
Right.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Sensei Mark. And Parni, what are your thoughts about using intentional language to create culture? And I like your little snail.
Thanks. I think it's very important. I was actually going to bring that up in my next class and when I speak later. Intentional language.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Did you want me to get specific?
I'd love it.
I can't really give a good example right now.
That's okay. Just
Okay,
putting you on the
MJ
spot.
has a good comment in the chat. He says that he really likes high effort and a positive attitude. So even something as simple as when we tell our students to do push-ups, everyone shouts down, right? It's everyone using their voice together to have that that unifying spirit. Or when we say line up, everyone shouts up, right? That energy, that intentionality of everyone here is working together, everyone is giving each other energy.
Absolutely. All right, Sensei Johnson, you want to move us into class structure?
Oh, absolutely. All right, so for class structure, a lot of the times we sort of go in and we wing it, right? We have a sort of a vague idea of what we want to talk about, what we want to do. Oh man, I really want to do sparring today. So we're gonna do sparring. Oh, but I got to throw in some kata. And sometimes these things don't mesh as well together as they could. So if we start with a goal that we want everyone to take away from that class, then we can build everything around it. And I can go wild with this, right? I can do a crazy dynamic warm up. I can move into Tai Chi. I can tie in some Wing Chun. I can do kata and self-defense, all while still maintaining one specific goal. And that goal could be something as simple as I want everyone to have a very strong shift from diagonal stance to forward stance. And I can build everything around that concept, right? So this part is important. So I want you to think about the next class that you're gonna do. What goal do you want your students to go into that class with? And what goal do you want them to accomplish coming out of that class? Do you want them to have stronger kiais? Do you want them to have a good side thrust kick? Do you want them to have better fluidity or a strong stance or a good punch, or maybe learn a specific technique? So I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to pick a goal for your next class. And as we go through these next steps, I want you to think about how they apply to your goal and what tools you can use to build into that goal.
And this is something that can be as simple as a reaction hand. In kata, focus on reaction hands. In sparring, focus on pulling your hand back to your guard. And then you could play a game where, I did this yesterday, it's really fun. Kids take their belts off and pull each other using the belts to drag each other across the floor. You're hitting the reaction hand in all components of the class, but the activities are very different. They're all varied.
All right, so wrapping up your thoughts, what we're gonna show next on these remaining slides is sort of a menu of options. None of these are the end all be all, because you have to decide what works for your school's culture, what goals you have for your students, and what that class structure generally looks like. I know Sensei Chris has a couple different structures that he employs for the different types of students and the different types of classes that he has, right, Sensei?
Absolutely. So on this list where it says same drills every time, I use this warm-up style because I have a class that I teach that only does applications and throwing. We don't focus on any other parts of the curriculum. So the drills we do are always a basic response to a punch. Your partner punches and you block and simultaneously strike. And then we just rep our rank level throw. And we do it every class once a week. And the students improve very quickly at those specific skills, which translate into the rest of the class, throwing and applications. Whereas my curriculum classes, I'm not going to do the same drills every time because I need to hit the whole curriculum.
And sometimes
Sensei Johnson?
we do a general warm-up where we're focusing on the basics, right? The basics are always the fundamentals of stances, shifting movement, center line, moving offline, head turning. All those things could be used in your warm-up so that no matter what you're doing for the rest of class, your warm-up is still focused on those fundamental concepts. Or you could have a warm-up like Sensei Chris was talking about where, hey, I'm really gonna focus hard on teaching shift from back stance to forward stance. So my warm-up is going to be centered around that concept. Or last week, we were doing a class specifically working on the Rocky demo. So every single movement that I did in that warm-up was working on movements from that Rocky demo. So it built up those muscles, it warmed them up in the way that they're actually going to be using them. From here, we've got our after warm-up, we've got our main course, right? All the different things that we're going to use in our true lesson. Are we looking at kata? Are we looking at self-defense applications? Are we looking at weapons? So as we take those different concepts of our curriculum, we can focus on different principles and different techniques in them. I had one really awesome class with Sensei Hornbeck one time where he really didn't like where our back stances were. So we did Taikyoku and our rank level kata, but every single movement was in back stance. So now we took a kata that we're good with, we took a kata that we're learning, and now we focused it on something very specific. All right, we can do the same thing with a lot of these. Like if we're focusing on our health that day, if we have a class specifically for students who are wanting to get stronger, right? Like a cardio kickboxing class or a yoga class, we can focus on techniques and movements that emphasize that. Okay, we're looking at strength. What's great? Let's do Taikyoku intention. Let's do your rank level kata intention. Are we doing weapons? Okay, after every single time we go through our 14 basic strikes, we're going to knock out some push-ups, we're going to knock out some squats, we're going to do some partner drills where we're really building that cardio, right? So everything can be centered around these different concepts. Based on the timeline that we're in, we can also look at curriculum review. What's the purpose of this curriculum review? Are we trying to get a general sense of, are the students ready? Are we trying to get our students to understand where their own deficiencies are and so they can work on them? Are we trying to give them confidence, right? We can have a curriculum view 10, 20, 30 different ways based on what we're trying to get the students to come out with. Do we want them to come out with more confidence? Well, we're not going to give them crazy hard combinations because then they're going to come out feeling defeated. We're not going to give them something brand new because now they're going to think, oh man, I just learned this and this is going to be on the test. I am not ready. So we have to structure those things around those goals. What is the purpose? We have to keep that in mind. And desserts. I know Sensei MJ brought this up at the end. When we have a consistent ending routine, Sensei Chris says he always ends class with sparring. Well, we can still change that and tailor it to what is the goal of this class. Was it about side thrust kick? We can have sparring focused on side thrust kick, defensive side thrust kick, offensive side thrust kick. Maybe it's just using that side thrust kick to gauge distance, but that sparring is now centered around a core concept in multiple very dynamic ways. With our pacing, as we go through and we build our class, we have to keep in mind our pacing. We can go 100% full bore all the way through, but you're going to have some very, very tired students about 15 minutes in, and they're not going to have the strength and the motivation or even be safe enough to do the things that they're going to do later on. So as we change up our pace, we change the focus, not necessarily the goal, but what are we trying to use for that goal? So as we slow things down, we're focusing on good technique. We're focusing on proper form. We're focusing on maintaining control, right? As I pick up that pace a little bit, I move into second gear. Now we're working on fluidity. Okay, I know you have the safety. I know you have the control. Now let's start making things flow together. Let's chain that shift in stance with our hand movement. Let's change that offline step with that block. So now they can start piecing things together. And then as they start getting things, as we start trying to build into different goals, we are speeding things up. Now we're controlling the huts. Now we're making things go really, really fast to maybe get their blood pumping, because the next part is going to need some very warm muscles. Maybe they've really got it. We want to give them the confidence to go fast and powerfully. So then we start speeding things up for them. So be very cognizant about what pace you're using for each part. And does that pace match the goal for that part, right? If I'm teaching side thrust kick for the very first time, I'm not going to go hard and fast right off the bat because they don't have the technique down yet. They could hurt themselves or each other if we go too fast, too quickly. Or maybe they're going to get frustrated because we're telling them like, oh, hit it harder, hit it harder, hit it harder. But wait, you got to chamber properly. Oh, but wait, don't forget about your foot. Oh, but wait, don't forget about your kicking stance. Oh, but wait, don't forget about your hip. Now we're stopping them and slowing them down anyway, but they're being told to speed up. So we can see where that conflict and that frustration go through. So be mindful of that pace.
Absolutely. And one of the things to think about is when you're in third gear, try not to teach too much with the precision. That's what your first gear section was for. If you want them to push really hard, they need those reps to get good at it. They're not good at it yet. So their technique may not be 100% correct. And you got to let a little bit of that slide and then come back to it at a later date and correct it, or else they won't get that high intensity repetition in.
All right, so now looking at the goal that you chose, I know we went really, really quickly through a lot of that.
Yeah.
Look at the pace you set for each part. So now we can take that goal. We can pick a couple different things to build into that goal. Let's say, for instance, you chose, I'm going to teach everyone today that inner chop. Well, how can I incorporate that inner chop into their kata? How can I incorporate that inner chop into self-defense techniques? How can I incorporate that inner chop into maybe even mat work, right? Let's do a forward roll and end with an inner chop. Let's do, I'm going to do an inner chop to you and you have to backward roll out of the way. Now I'm going to step aside and have a student do that inner chop to you. So now they're practicing two different things at once, but still focusing on that very specific goal. All right. So we'll give 3 minutes for this part because I know there's a lot of things that can move into here. So look at your goal, look at the different parts for that goal, and then look at the pacing. Should this part be fast? Should it be slow? Should I start slow in this part and then speed it up? Or should I start fast and slow it down? Now we're really getting into the meat of things. How are we building this lesson and putting it together? Oh, there's a lot of good things going on in the chat.
Yeah, I know. I go back and read through the chat and I'm like, well, that's like I hope the chat's saved in the recording because there's a lot of valuable information in the chat. And the class is going to end real soon. We'll stick around for a little bit to answer some questions.
Yeah. Thematic class structure. Yeah. So everything's centered around a central theme or a central goal. Yeah. Same, very, very similar or same concept.
Yeah,
Connie did come up with that purposeful language example. It's a really good one. I'm glad you made it to class. Sometimes the hardest part of class is getting to class. So acknowledging that, yeah, it's difficult sometimes, but I'm really glad you're here. Your PDF in chat. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Go ahead and put that PDF in chat for those people that did not get it. That'd be great.
And Sensei Mark, we didn't dig into what ranks folks teach, but it's definitely, that could be a real big discussion about a single rank class versus multi-rank classes and looking at principles that tie between different ranks that would be appropriate for their curriculum. I feel like we could do a whole class on just that.
Oh, yeah. It was very difficult for us to pick specific topics and themes to cover in such a short amount of time. But we chose things that we thought could be applied very broadly that would be still very useful to you all.
Yeah.
So our last part here, our last part for information is talking about attention span. The research on this is very much leaning toward the idea of attention span having an upper limit. So as students increase in age, their attention span goes from about 30 seconds to 1 second for some students, right? To every single year that they gain in maturity, they're adding a minute or so until you get to this very upper limit of about 10 to 15 minutes at the very maximum. If you start thinking about the movies that you really enjoy, those TV shows, you think, oh, well, I sat through like a 3-hour-long Lord of the Rings movie. I paid attention the whole time. Yeah, but how many times did they change the music? How many times did they change the scene? How many times did they change the character or the plot points or what's happening, right? If you look at the different scenes, each one's probably only about 3 to 4 minutes. So they're constantly switching up your attention by changing what's happening. So yeah, we can get students through a 2-hour class, but if we want them working and engaged and happy the entire time, we need to keep changing things up, right? I can't do a single drill for 2 hours and expect everyone to still be motivated by the end of it. So changing our voice, changing our language, changing the pace, changing the activity in purposeful timelines is going to be helpful to you, right? Okay, we're going to practice the load for my inner chop, but we're only going to do it for about 30 seconds to a minute. Now we're going to add something onto it. They're still practicing inner chop, but I'm changing things up so they stay engaged and they stay focused. This very last part here is where we sort of kick you guys out to go do your own lesson planning and figure things out. We are out of time to be able to do that together. But what I think would be really cool is if you look through these last couple slides, they have some guiding questions to it. What is the goal of your class? How long is your class and how many parts should it have? How much time should each part take? Right? As you keep going through, these guiding questions give you an overview of what could be thought of and what could be put in place. If you guys send those completed lessons to me and Sensei Chris, we can send it out to all of you guys so that not only are you being very purposeful with your lessons, now everyone's learning from your own teaching style and learning from the different ideas that you're incorporating. And I think it'd be really amazing to have everyone see what different class structures look like. So we can experiment and we can figure out what makes us a better sensei and what helps our students.
And we definitely want your ideas in our inboxes so we can use them for our classes, because I'm always trying to improve and grow and steal ideas from y'all, because I know you all have lots of experience and lots of different thoughts about how to teach a good class. And so give them to me because I want to get better at this too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not quite comfortable for us to share out your lesson and you just like, hey, can you give me some feedback? Can you take a look at this and let me know what you think? 100%. Send it to us. We'll give you feedback. We'll tell you what we really love about it. We'll tell you what we would do differently. And we'll tell you some more things that we love about it.
Yeah. All right. So let's just open up the floor to any general questions that you have or thoughts, opinions. We're ready for anything.
Great class, great material, great teamwork, you two.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated, Master DD.
Yeah, you guys can. It's obvious that the amount of collaboration and preparation that you two had to dive into for this to be laid out and be concise and clear with good direction for this class was there. So thank you guys for the effort and all the time it took to get your ideas together and with the PowerPoint and everything. It was great.
Much appreciated. Yeah, we had a brief meeting last night. We were like, oh, let's just chat for a few minutes before this. We spent an hour and 40 minutes going through the slides and writing how we were going to interact. And we were like, wait a second. That was way more than a 5-minute meeting. But no, it's wonderful. I mean, I just love seeing y'all here. And I hope that you both get a lot out of this and then use it as a jumping off point to share more information, because we're only 2 points in a sea of really skilled teachers who have years and years of experience. So anything you want to send us that's good information about it. I know Master Ricky mentioned these cards in the chat. This is a great resource that's got all sorts of different games and activities in them, broken up by style of game and developmental level. So I know all of you have lots of good ideas and we want them.
Yeah, like everyone's got a favorite drill, right? Everyone's got a go-to thing that they really like doing because it always gets the students active. It always gets the students involved. Like in my classroom, if there's students that they don't really seem like they're engaged, they don't really seem like they're working properly, bam, let's make posters. You should see AP Physics high school students go nuts over what color crayon they're using. It's insane. I pull that box out, everyone's fighting for different colors, everyone's working, everyone's moving forward. And there's things that we do in the dojo that do the same thing, right? Oh, let's do partner throws. If the students all love partner throws, now we can incorporate different things into that.
Totally. Anybody else have any specific questions?